Fandemonium. Right now, going on in special events, we've got comic artists, the webcomics panel. Multiple different comic artists will be discussing their own comics going on. These are things you're going to want to know. Alex Thatcher from Infinity Club is going to be discussing his comics. That's Alex Thatcher. Reed Hawker from Culture Shock. Lucas Hudson, Drunk Monkey Comics, and our own Kira from Construction.
Hello, everyone out there. As you may have heard and noticed, this is the webcomics panel. I'm Lucas Hudson. I do Drunk Monkey Comics, which updates sporadically lately, but soon to be back on schedule. Immediately to my right here is Alex Thatcher. He does Infinity Club, as his shirt informs you. To his right is Reed Walker. He does Culture Shock. And to his right, I keep having to say right, I apologize. To his right is Kira, and she does Under Construction. There we go. I just remember the last part of the announcement. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk a little bit about what we do, and then I'm going to show a little artwork. I know Reed wants to show a little artwork. I don't really know what everyone else is going to do yet. And then we'll field some questions. Sound good? Okay, so like I said, I'm Lucas Hudson. I do Drunk Monkey Comics, and basically a lot of the times just sort of random humor. I have periodical strips that for characters that repeat themselves, but mostly it's just sort of oddball humor that happens. So I work on that. I'm the writer and artist on that. I'm also the writer on another webcomic called Dorian Phillips. I just noticed the artist walk in back there and try to hide. That's Aaron Leach. He's the artist on that, and there's a sample of that stuff over at both our tables. We'll be there for a little bit longer after the panel. You can check that out. Let me see. As far as what I do, I'll show you a few things here. I don't know if you can see this one. This is sort of can anyone see that at all? I don't know, it's a blue line. And I'll pass it around, actually. That's what I do. This is the... Okay, yeah, I'll stand over here. That's some blue line work from this lab. That's what I start with. I start with blue pencil and start roughing out the idea and get the designs down for what the character's going to look like for each strip. And I usually start with sort of a rough outline in my head as like what the story's going to be. And then from there I move on to the ink on it after I got the full thing sketched out. So that's on a full page. That's just sort of a sample of what I was working on. That's the inks on a finished strip. After I get the inks on the finished strip, what happens is I take it in, get it scanned, depending on the size. I used to do it a lot larger, so they'd be on something like this size. And I'd have to go and get that size down, but anymore I'm using a smaller size, so just scan it into Photoshop. If there any touch-up that needs to be done, if I smudge some ink or something like that. Then after I save it in Photoshop, I move it into Illustrator, do any texting that I need to do if I'm not hand texting. Sometimes I do hand text, but most of the time it's just I use the computer to do it, move it back into Photoshop and save it up. So that's pretty good. That's basically what I do as far as I use the basic Photoshop and Illustrator, not a lot of tricks to it. There's a couple. There's a website I use for fonts, Blambot. Free fonts. They're excellent.
They're comic specific.
Yeah, comic specific, and you can get a lot more if you pay for them. But there are some free ones that you can get that are really great.
Can you repeat that, please?
Blambot. It's just www.blambot.com, and it has free. It is free, and you can become a member and get fonts too. Sorry, I just sort of spaced out there. So that's just basically what I do. It's a pretty simple process. Usually, start to finish, a strip will take maybe 2 hours in like complete completion where it's loaded up. I'm also sort of minimalist in my backgrounds, as you noticed, as it went around. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to pass it over to Alex and let him tell me what he does.
I do the comic strip called Infinity Club. Haven't had a chance to update it for a while now because I actually just released a book called Meat Market, It's pretty much available worldwide. You can order from anybody, any bookseller out there at this point. But Infinity Club, the way I work that is that it's basically something that I start with a drawing, a hand drawing, and I just really keep it simple. Basically, I got I start with just a pencil sketch, I scan it in, and then I clean it up. And if I'm feeling like putting some color in it, I put color in it, and and basically I just finished it. Lost my train of thought. Awesome. So basically with Infinity Club, really it's bargain basement. I try and keep it as simple as possible. The point is that you don't really have to have much to be able to do a web comic. It doesn't take much at all. I'm running Windows 98 at home. I'm running. Thank you.
Sorry, it was just funny the way you said it, like.
Running Windows 98 second edition.
It's just right there, hold on.
Yeah. Using Adobe Photoshop, the free version, that would be 3.0. Thank you. And actually, I create, yes, there is a free version, 3.0. It's like far removed from the actual version that they currently sell. And I use PowerPoint to actually create word bubbles. PowerPoint I've found is like one of the best to create word bubbles. It's also great for text because they pretty much have a built-in comic font that works really good. Thing is, when you create with PowerPoint or any computer-generated text I've found, is that when you put it on paper, it doesn't look right. And so, actually, once a year, Comic Genesis, where I post, they'll do a kind of a group comic book. They'll invite some of the more popular artists, and then sometimes they'll open it up to other people. Sometimes they won't. It just depends on how many people during the year they have that, how much room basically they have in the comic book. But putting it on paper, it gets a lot more complicated. And a few of the steps that you have to go through is basically when you're putting it on the screen, resolution-wise, you only have to do 300 dpi. When you're putting it on paper, it's got to be at least 600 dpi. And when you're going 600 dpi, that's when you start running into problems. If you're running out of memory, all kinds of stuff, because usually I'm running at least 18 layers just to get one image done on the page. And that can be a real memory hog. Usually...
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were running 18 layers. That's great.
Yeah, it's...
I run 3 layers for when I do in Ocean.
Yeah, and so 18 layers, and then you try and drop a word bubble in. You wouldn't think a word bubble, or a text bubble would kill it, but it's the straw that broke the camel's back, and you run out of memory. So, but really, what you have to do is you have to get it into the 600 dpi, and then if you want the word bubbles to look like what they should on a comic book page, what I'll do is I'll drag and I'll cut and paste actually from PowerPoint into Photoshop, and then I'll just do a Gaussian, or I think that's how you say it. Gaussian? Gaussian word.
I just looked over at you, man.
No, I've only seen it on the screen. I've never actually even tried to pronounce it. But yeah, you just do that, and it will basically take the rough edges off of it and give it that nice hand-drawn look. And take a look at it here. the Infinity Club one. Basically, you can see all of that was done in Photoshop 3 with bare minimum, seriously bare minimum, and I managed to pull it off. And from what I've heard from other people, they can't tell. So yeah, if you want to get into it, you can do it with about $5. That's about what my computer's worth out. But yeah, that's all I've got to say for now. That's the mic.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh, they had their own mic.
So I can interrupt.
Same time.
What?
All right.
Did you get over the projector?
No, I asked them about that, and I should have. I really should have talked to them about that earlier, getting it up on the projector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come down. I'm going to walk it around to you guys, since it's a laptop and it's not that heavy. And I'm going to turn this off anyway, because it's hard to hold a laptop with one hand. Anyway.
Just juggle.
Okay, fine, a quarter.
Oh. All right, you talked me into it. I'm just joking.
I'm kidding.
Oh, it's going the wrong way again.
Well, my name is Reed Hawker, and I do the comic Culture Shock. It's hosted on Drunk Duck, and sorry, I'm just loading something at the same time. Culture Shock is a comic about a knight who is fighting crime in the city in modern days, and he ends up having to share. What? Well, I'm going to need to switch stuff. It's all right. Thanks for offering, though. This knight ends up having to share an apartment with a ninja, and they don't exactly mix very well. The ninja just happens to be in America trying to find a wife, and the knight happens to be hunting down a witch that terrorized his country and then travels forward in time but was chased by him. These guys end up sharing an apartment together as they try to fight crime. I'll kind of show you the process I go through here as I make a page. I actually don't know why I got up quite yet, but when I make a page, it's first just drawn out on plain actual typing paper, or computer paper actually, and I'll show you just kind of what that looks like. This is just a simple sketch pretty much. Page number 97 here. The knight and the ninja are actually trying to help each other. I stuck around. I'm very, very grateful. So I showed you the pencil sketch, which was just drawn and then scanned. What I do after that is I used to marker the things, but markers got expensive and hard to do and stuff. So I just decided, you know what? I want color pages. So I take it into Flash, which you've probably seen Flash animations before. And you might not realize that it's not just good for animation, it's a fantastic program for art. What I do is I ink it in Flash, put in all the inks, and it creates some actual very smooth line work, like I'm showing right here. Very easy to color in as well. The Flash is then, I color it. I do a lot of the shading and coloring in Flash, and that's why my comic has just sort of a solid, cel-shaded look to it.
Do you trace over your...
Yeah, I trace directly over the pencil sketch in Flash. And the nice thing about inking in Flash is that you can undo it anytime you want. And that's something that they haven't put in the ink pens yet. So I just had a very good question there. I do use a tablet. I just don't think there's a way you can ink very well with a mouse. The tablets just do wonders. So finally, once I've got all the color in and I've got everything inked and smooth, I usually don't do the backgrounds in Flash, but I take it to Photoshop and I put in the color. Well, I got the color. I put in the words and some of the other elements like my signature and the title of the page, the word bubbles. They're very easy to do in Photoshop with just a few layer adjustments and some text. And you finally get the end page right there. In this particular page, the knight is giving the ninja some mating advice, but it ends up being both of them a little bit beat up. But it was a learning experience for both of them. Yeah.
Does that increase your file size a lot going from vector program to pixel-based?
Well, actually, the vector-based one, the Flash one, is very small because it's all just a couple equations. Well, maybe not a couple, but it's just because vector is usually very small in file size, but it does get larger when you drag it over to Photoshop. And I do keep both of them, but they're not so big that it hurts my hard drive very much. That's pretty much the process right there. You know, I usually just flatten it all, cut it in half in size, because I like to work double the size that the actual would be, and then I upload it to my account on Drunk Duck, the Culture Shock comic. All right.
I'm writing notes myself. I started doing the official convention comic about 2 months ago. I have about 10 or 11 updates now. I thought, though, it might be interesting for people to know how you can change very quickly when you start a webcomic. I'm going to go ahead and pass 3 around. The first one is the very first comic I did. It was in pencil. I scanned it in and I posted it. And that's it. The second one, somebody showed me how to use micron ink pens with a piece of tracing vellum. And so I started tracing over this with micron inking pens. Obviously the inks aren't very good, but here's hoping. So the tracing vellum is actually in here above the original pencils. And then last but not least, I started doing that, but also doing it with several different pages instead of just doing it all on one page. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this around so you can take a look at it. Please don't take them out, but take a look at it. What I normally do is I do the pencils first. I kind of get the idea of how big the panel's going to be from the pencils I use a ruler. Draw the pencils in, kind of have the idea of where the people are going, what they're saying, write notes and stuff like that all over it. I scan it in using a black and white engine, which takes out most of the bad stuff, like the sphere and the tracing and all the other extra things that I do when I have ink. Since I've started inking, what I've done is I've taken the tracing vellum, inked it over using a clipboard, and then I've scanned in the vellum with a piece of black paper on the back of it, because that way it keeps whatever's on the back, on the top of the scanner from showing up in the scan. I utilize 2 programs. I utilize Page and I utilize Page Up Pro, which you'd be surprised how often I switch between them, because I haven't really learned how to use one over the other yet. And then I put in word bubbles using Page Up Pro, and that's it. I only use one layer. Dr. Minimal is like, use one layer.
Well, the nice thing about most of the layers is that you don't have to worry about screwing up what you've already got.
See, I like this. I should learn how to do this.
Yeah, I have to say that I like multiple layers because basically what happens is, you know, you can do each thing you need to do in a separate layer and then just sort of squish them all together.
What's really good about
I like the
layering,
technique.
what's really good about layering is that it allows you to put in shadows and all kinds of stuff on one layer. And you don't have to worry about whether it's going to affect the actual image that you have. So usually I'll create an image, clean it up. If it's in pencil, it's going to be gray. So I'll basically make sure it's all black and white. I'll pick up the contrast a little bit, the brightness, kind of cleaning it up. And then basically start adding layers. Anything that you want, like a layer from lights to make. Basically, lighting is really easy. All you do is put a white dot, create another layer, and then put a fuzz around it to get light. So that's just economy of that extra effects. say. So when we're talking about sending, what we're talking about, I assume you're doing it the same way that most of us are, is FTP. Is that what you're doing? Oh, okay. Okay. So if you're if you're hosting on a website, use what?
Drunk Duck just has a simple HTML upload.
Well, yeah, and there are two things, like, I think Common Sense said that too.
Yeah.
They have a simple HTML update. You don't have to send it.
Well, yeah, but
It's
you
nice.
should at least have an idea of what it is. Yeah.
I'm on the screen, I'm just saying you don't have to.
So FTP is what's FTP works really good with larger files. So if you're planning on like doing something just mind blowing, you really need to know what FTP is and to a certain extent what GIMP is. What FTP is file transfer protocol. Basically, in your address bar on Internet Explorer, you're going to have HTTP. Instead of that, you just put in FTP. That allows you to basically send directly to a website that you're hosting with. Usually they'll have a file already set up that you can FTP into that they've assigned to you or whatever they decide to do. And what GIMP is basically a way to deal with a 600 DPI file transfer. GIMP's going to GIMP it out, basically, dumb it down enough so you're still going to maintain your integrity of the image, but it's going to be small enough so you can get it stuff in time, basically. GIMP is free, and that's why I bring it up. Anybody want to add to that?
I'd just like to continue with what Kira was saying, in that webcomics are a very cheap and easy to get into hobby that you might find becomes a lot of hard work, but it's something that you can get into for free and you can enjoy doing and you can make a lot of friends doing. And okay, I'll stay there.
Well, I disagree with
It's
it.
also very nice, by the way, to get regular updates.
Yes.
You may not think that anybody's reading your comics.
They are.
I have read a lot of webcomics, and I appreciate regular updates.
They are. And that's the thing, too, is there's something I don't think people realize. The nature of what you're doing, Reed's totally right, you meet a lot of great friends. And sometimes you don't realize those friends are there because all they're doing is reading that strip of yours. And they're there. But it sometimes can feel like a solitary thing. Like, I know for me sometimes it's, you're just sort of sitting there working on it and you feel like, oh man, I never hear anything from anyone about it ever. But it's not. You can feel solitary, but it's not, is what I'm saying. Is that there are people out there who read your stuff, want to keep reading it, like what you're doing. And a lot of times those people just don't send you emails because they think you're really busy and you're not. I mean, that's what it boils down to sometimes. And some of us aren't really busy, but what? About being busy? Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah, busy.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, that's just good to see you, man. And things like coming to shows like this, if you're a web cartoonist, a lot of times Arts Alley-tables are free. Sometimes there's a charge, but if you have that money, you can make that trip. It's worth doing. You meet cool people. You meet cool people. Like, I met Reed last year here, and he's a cool guy. I met Alex last year here.
It's okay.
Yeah, Alex is all right. It's not like I talked to him very often, but But just met Kira this year as far as like
I was
comics.
at registration.
You were at registration last year, so I didn't get to talk to you about comics. But you do get. But still, you do get to meet a lot of cool people. You make good friends. You make connections. Other people will be like, hey, they can send people to your website. They can, if you're looking to do this as a profession, or just comics in general. I don't mean necessarily web comics, because some people start on the web and want to move to something else. Or some people do web comics as something that just feeds all their other creative urges. There are people out there who read them and want, are looking for fresh ideas, looking for a different take, looking for a different way of doing things. And they might bump into you, send you a message. regular updates totally aren't. Totally about that. This side of the table is not great on regular updates, but we're trying. This side, I mean, I guess it's two tables. I'm just as bad. It's okay.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, let's open up for more questions. So just stand up or something. Show you have a question. I don't know. Signify yourself some way. We'll try to answer it. Make a joke about it.
Well, the program ad said that we're going to talk about what not to do.
I wrote that.
What not to do? Okay.
Well, you wrote it. Start talking.
Don't put pencils on, run away. Yeah. Well, you read it. You should figure it out.
Oh,
I read it.
you don't read. You just write. Never. Okay. Do you want to go down the line? We just go one what not to do each.
Sure.
Would that be fun? Don't. What's a good not to do? Don't. Well, I'm gonna go back to the idea of don't wait to put your stuff up. Don't be late, because it's like, as far as putting it up, if you especially if you've gotten really good about getting a rhythm, try to keep that rhythm. It helps. I'm gonna keep harping on this. It's not really great what not to do. You sit there laughing. Like, you better have something better. Anyway, you want to make sure that you're.
I probably recognize him if I did.
Your turn.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. You found that out.
If you guys don't mind, I'll go down there and have them announce that again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, because I missed parts. Yeah.
Can you just take a break so we can all go down there? 20% off?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. For masks.
So they should have retail price by okay.
It's okay.
Would you like it? All right. So here's what I've got to say about it, and I cannot say this enough times because people are looking for break out there and they've always got some kind of con. Just don't be a sucker. Seriously, there are so many things out there that are free and that are good deals, and there's somebody right next to them that's saying, "Give me $600, I'll hook you up," and they won't. It'll be way worse than what you could have gotten for free. Perfect example of this that is like in the publishing world. It did not cost me a penny to get my book out there, and all I had to do was submit my book idea. They got back to me, everything. They just gave me everything. And they're a print-on-demand publisher, which has a negative connotation to a certain extent. But if you go any writer's magazine, even Popular Science even has the ads now. If you look in the back, there's all these publishers that claim to be print-on-demand. They want $600 up front, because that's how much it costs to do an average one to print a book. $625 actually to do a print-on-demand book is what the average cost is. So that's fine if you're just in it to get one book for yourself and you want to pay $625. But you have to be realistic about it, because the people that are asking for money, they're not going to be honest with you. The people that are going to give it to you for free basically are. And you should really listen to what they're saying, take notes, and understand. Because seriously, it took me about 10 years. Even though I have an English degree, it was almost impossible to get a book done. Basically, if you want to get something out there, you have to go and intern at a book publishing company.
Can I sort of ask
Go ahead.
real quick before? The other thing is, before I forget it, is that what I was saying earlier, about the emails and sort of the solitary thing. Go ahead and email. Like, they have their email. Most people have an email address or contact address on their website. I know I had mine. I don't know if it's up there now. I don't remember. But send an email. Just ask. Like, what are you using to do this? I really like your work. Whatever you feel like you have to say first before you go into the question you ask. And just ask them, like, what are you using to do this? How are you going about this? What tips can you give me? I found a lot of guys out there are really helpful. They'll look at, if you've already got something up there, they'll look at it for you, tell you what they think. Some of them are jerks, but I mean, that's like anything else in life. There's some jerks. So.
But do not.
Don't base it entirely on
No, don't. I'm telling you, even if somebody comes off like a jerk, they might have a valid point. Don't just dismiss the jerk. Look at what they're saying, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Don't let it stop you from doing what you feel is right.
Exactly.
You got to go with what you feel is right. And sometimes some people just stop for one person. That doesn't mean anything. It's their opinion. Don't let it stop you. You got to keep going.
Yes, but one thing to do, if you have issues and you do feel like you might not have a lot of self-confidence as far as giving something up.
Just like you phrase it.
What I'm trying to say is that if you do feel like you need some confidence to help push you out, even if you don't, I mean, even if you're starting in something that you're not sure you'll do really well at, what you need to do is you need to find people who will give you criticism, that will give you constructive criticism, will give you criticism that you will trust, you're able to just show it to them and go, here, I need some ideas. Can you give me any ideas on how to do that? I have a couple of friends who I take things to if I'm stuck or having trouble on it, and I'll just hand it to them and say, what do you think? And they won't sit there and tell me that it sucks. They won't sit there and tell me that it's horrible and I need to stop forever. They'll give me ideas. I mean, the last comic I did, one of them told me that growing his mustache looked like a fat upper lip, and I'm going, okay. Well, it's black and white for one thing, but that's a good idea. Maybe I should make it, stripes or something instead of making it, a rectangle. It's just, for this kind of thing, and for all the arts that people do, music, artistry, anything that has to do with creative focus, you need somebody out there that won't sit down and basically tell you that you suck. You need somebody that'll tell you that you suck, but here's how I suggest you do it better.
And I'm sorry, one last thing I wanted to throw in on that real quick is it's really good to have you want to try to find that one person. Usually there's one. Sometimes you have many. If you have many, you're fortunate. The one person who is unfailingly honest with you about your work, but never ever, but it's totally supportive at the same time. I hope you understand what I'm saying there.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who is totally honest and unfailingly supportive, who will look at your work and go, that joke's not funny. You have no idea how many times I hear that. And it crushes me every time because I like to think I'm really funny the first time out. But it's good because it makes you go back and look over it, and you look over and you go, oh, okay, I see why that's not working. I see why this isn't funny, or this image doesn't work. And it's something, and it really is sometimes a challenge to push that ego aside, but they're trying to help. So you want someone who is unfailingly honest, unfailingly supportive.
My confidant is he's been a big help to me. But as far as advice, and just like, things not to do. Advice of things not to do. I've had people talk to me about comics they wanted to start up, and people get the urge is a lot to make them. But here's what not to do when you want to start up your comic. Sometimes I'll hear people say, well, it's just like Mega Tokyo, but. And you got to put up a red flag right there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you say after but. The comic is ruined. I think that when you're making a comic, you need to find first and foremost why it's going to be different from everything else. Yes.
What he's talking about is actually a business strategy that they teach in college. It's the elevator proposal. Basically, you have to, whatever it is that you're trying to sell, you have to figure out how to tell it in what would take in an elevator ride. Basically, so you may have only one shot in your entire life to sell whatever you believe it is that you've got. You need to figure out how you can tell it good in that elevator ride. So in less than a minute, you have to come up with a description that's going to stay in an executive's head. And that's how you got to do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
And do it, they tell you a lot of times, I know I should screen writing, I tell you you want to do a comparison thing, but if you're dealing with someone who's not creative, that helps them. But if you're talking to another artist or something like that, all that might do, basically what it boils down to is other artists don't need you to pretend we're not artists. And that you don't have an original idea, because we know you do. That's why you're telling us about it, or that's why you're talking about your original idea. So just tell us what the idea is, and use that strategy, use the 1 minute strategy. Just say, like, this is what it is. It's about a monkey who attacks Tokyo. And someone says, that's what that guy's like, well, yeah, kind of, but it's not. You know, that's a poor example, I guess.
This is beyond pitching even. I'm talking about what you do your comic about, too. And I think it just follows suit right after the pitch, is that you want to do something that's different from what's out there, because if you're going to do just another Mega Man Sprite comic, I don't know why anyone's going to read it, because they've got about 100 of them on one hosting site alone that they could read as well. So if what not to do is come up with something that's just like something else. You want to be different.
Don't be afraid to use somebody else's concept too. I mean, there's a lot of comics out there that use the same premise. Two guys get moved, or somebody gets moved from one location to another, like Culture Shock. Somebody gets moved from one location to another. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but that's probably the premise from the Mega Tokyo too. They get moved from America to Japan.
Yeah.
They start out in a completely new culture. You know? But look at the comics, they're completely different. Not only for the art style and the fact that it recolors his, and I believe Fred Gallagher still uses pencils.
Is she on tape regularly?
Yeah, it's regularly.
She had a problem with that one.
She's got a good point.
Time bar.
What?
Mega Tokyo's time bar. I'm almost done. It's 60%. 70%. Oh,
That's another thing. Don't do that. Don't tell people that you're going to have something done when you're just don't know
I'm
for
almost
yourself.
done. 50%. Let me get one.
Don't do that.
That can have to emphasize enough. Don't go on the forum boards and tell people it's going to be up tomorrow when you haven't drawn it.
Yeah, no.
Don't go tell everyone that
Never
it's going to be ready to go. Don't.
Never
If you set the schedule, you have to be to it. So if you're going to set the schedule, know you can make it.
Yeah.
All right, and
Don't never promise because you're always going to apologize.
Yes.
whatever you do, don't own one of the biggest licenses in the world. Go out and buy a Porsche that's more expensive than anything else that's available, and then promise that if you're late with your comics, which you have been continuously every month, promise that you'll pay for them.
That's cautionary tale from the print comics world. There's a guy who did that.
I learned that in the hard way. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, in fans, you should know, because you're here, are a fickle bunch sometimes. And if I tell you my strip will be updated X times a week, and I don't update it, there's a good chance you're going to drop me off that all-important favorites list.
Yeah, just don't promise it.
Just don't promise it until you, and if you feel you have to, be ahead of schedule. There's no shame in doing 12 comics before you ever put them on the way.
When I started this one, I did 4 or 5 comics before I even posted the first one. No freaking clue what I was doing, but I did 4 or 5 comics before I started.
The other thing that gives you too is it gives you a chance to feel out those characters and know whether it's going to work. The worst thing you could do, story-wise, I think, is to not really be ready to go. Yeah, not really be ready to go. Not like if you do 5 strips and all of a sudden you realize my 2 characters hate each other and there's no reason they would have ever been in this situation together ever. You have a problem, and you need to go back to the first strip and rework it. Or maybe you get 5 strips and it's beautiful, and everything's going great, and then that's a great sign. You can know what to do.
what's that?
Sorry.
I got done.
All I wanted to add was basically what you were talking about, updating. If you want to make the comic something truly special, it's not necessarily even about the artwork. It's always to, if say week to week, or week to week, that's what they're going to look at. Not necessarily art, whether you're reliable, if you actually want to get into the history. And I'd like to go back and add a couple things to what I was saying before. Don't expect somebody to give you something completely free. But also be realistic about it. Kind of shop around. With the comic Genesis comic that I did, for example, what is it? $1,200 per page. You like a one-page ad?
I have no idea. I don't even sure.
So, like in a current comic, if you just try to purchase one page, I think it's like $1,200 to $3,500, depending on, yeah, do a full page. $30 a page, basically, wholesale. So they're not giving it to you for free, but at the same time, it's wholesale. You're paying what they're paying. You're not paying the escalated price that they just basically, oh, it's Superman, $3,500. That's why. So yeah, use common sense. I hate to say that because what's the goal? Common sense is so common. Yeah, but just stop and think for a second. I know sometimes it's really exciting. Oh, I'm going to have this opportunity, but just stop and look at what the opportunity is before you take it. Seriously.
Anybody else have any other questions?
We should probably put in Q&A because we're going
Yes.
long.
Yeah,
sorry.
we are. No, you're right. From there.
What do you guys do for sources for ideas?
I go to meetings. I have the easiest job in the world. I go to meetings and I write things down. I watch a karate chop and lemon cupcake. I'm going to use that somewhere. Somebody said that, and then yeah.
So you're talking overall ideas for storylines and all that.
Or just like the jokes?
If you want to talk about storylines, the best thing I found is to just go out for a drive somewhere.
Just drive over somebody. They scream something, it seems useful.
But go
There you go.
One of you out there, I want to see that in the script somewhere. You're going to use that. Or I'm going to use it, and then I'm going to get after you.
So no, but some of the best ideas I have is if I let somebody else drive, and you got to make sure they're a good driver. Drivers are just focusing on what they're doing. But really, if you go out for a long drive, you'll find if you have nothing else to do, you'll find you're staring out the window, and you'll see things, and usually ideas come to you. It's like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And that's a really good way to get like long-term plot scenarios. Usually, I've found if you want to get like wording and stuff, just start putting yourself in the shower. That usually works for me.
You could draw a lot from life. Like for me, I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and that gave me a lot of great fish out of water culture shock scenarios. And I'm still drawing from them. You can, I mean, just look back in your life and see what you kind of specialize in and what meant a lot to you, and it usually becomes a great comic topic.
I would say the best thing you can do, especially if you're doing humor work, is just talk to people. People are funny. They don't mean to be. And sometimes they do. There are people who, that's what they do. But people, there are foibles. It's funny. Just read things. Just read everything.
Yeah, read everything.
Read everything you can find. People are doing crazy things that you couldn't even imagine. Every day, someone's doing something totally wacky. And you can take that, and you can draw off that, and you can twist it a little bit yourself, or sometimes you don't even have to. And you can use that, or you can just talk to people and sit and listen. Go to places, go to big places like malls, convention centers, parks full of people on the 4th of July. Malls are great.
Sit like in a coffee shop.
Yeah, sit in a coffee
Maybe in a
shop.
mall and watch people.
Watch the people.
They're psychotic.
Listen to them. They'll say things that are amazing, or you'll mishear it, and that's almost better. Like, when you mishear someone, that's great because I don't do it all the time. I like to every now and then, but take a little notepad with you and just jot down what you thought you heard. Because all of a sudden later, someone's saying it in your comic strip. The other thing too is once you get used to your characters, or the characters that in my case occur most often in my scripts, you know what they say. It sounds hardy to say. They sort of develop their own way of talking. Their own way of right. They do.
If you take and outline a character and you know what their behaviors are, they literally, once you start the story, they will start acting on their own.
They do it themselves.
They'll do stuff that, I mean, it's got to be it's probably psychotic behavior. I'm sure it is. But it's seriously, you start hearing their voice in your head, and all you got to do is write it down.
It's sort of like, if you've seen Seinfeld, they created a great character, Kramer, and at that point, and they got like their wiener guy, George, and stuff, and they just stick him in a spot, and the story pretty much writes itself.
Just watch them react. You just watch them react. And the thing is, you know what they're likely to say, or what they're likely to do, or if you know everything about them. You don't have to show the audience everything about them, but you know it. You know if they're a liar, basically. You know if they're all their flaws, all their good things, all the things they don't tell anyone else, all the way in, and it doesn't always have to be there, but you should know it. You need to know these things because otherwise they don't feel authentic, and it's important that characters bring the truth.
Something I want to suggest if you're going to do it that way is to have somewhere, write it down. Have this just one sheet of paper, name on the top. This is what he does. He hates fish. He likes, this is what he likes. This is what he hates. This is what he wears. And just use that, refer back to that when you have ideas. And if they change during the course of the comic, scratch it off, write something else.
And just show those ideas in places too. Sorry.
Well, I find it's easier to find a spot and it's all in the same spot. So
See, I'm disorganized. So what I do is I scribble on scrap paper and throw it somewhere that I know I'll look later. And then it's like a grab bag. You're like, I'll use that. It doesn't always happen that way. And I'm not recommending it necessarily because it's not always funny. Talk to your friends too. Talk to people who are artists. They know your joke style. People who read your comic strip. There's some people out there who they'll call you on it. If you're off base, they'll call you on it. And it's good. It's not bad. It's not like, oh, you think you know your characters better. You know your characters better than I do. No, they care. They care, and they know that you were maybe having an off day. It helps.
One thing I'd like to add is about the characters, what you're talking about right there. A perfect example of knowing your characters is Larry Hama when he did G.I. Joe. The guy literally wrote every single comic. There's maybe like 5 out of 150 that he did not write. What he did that made G.I. Joe what it was is because there was a buttload of toy comics at that time. But he specifically went in from the very beginning. Every single character had their own file card. He actually wrote the file cards that came into toys, but his version was like at least a page for every single person. Quirks, characterizations, quotes that other people had actually said about them, about their personality types. And he even put in a drawing of what he thought that character looked like, hairstyles, everything. So what that helps with is that creates a voice in your head, and it also gives you a visual identity in your head, so you can think of that person and what they would say. And yeah, G.I. Joe's still alive to this day, and look at the other toy lines that came out in the 80s, and they,
What happened to the GoBots? You got a question back there, actually.
Well, what I was curious about is hypothetically, when you gain a very large fan base from doing good updates, from them enjoying your comic, you have lots and lots of people reading your comic all the time. What do you do now?
You buy a big house and quit. I'm done. That's what art is about. You just want to buy a big house and quit. So no.
No, I mean, but webcomic art usually comes up.
That's right. You go
Honestly,
into this conversation.
honestly, my own personal opinion on that is that you do something you love to do it. If you stop, if you don't love to do it anymore, you don't do it because you're just forcing yourself to do something that you hate.
No, I
Would
mean,
you go? Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying because some people have stopped because they've gotten big fan bases, and that's
why would you
because
stop when you were so big?
Well,
Okay.
You
It's
buy a
not fair.
Porsche for
And then you miss
can't
it.
even buy it.
bankrupt yourself.
Yeah, but it's not the fame that's important. It's not the people that read your comic. I mean, they are important, but what's important is that you're satisfying you're satisfying your creativity. You want to do this. This is the reason you do this. You want to do it. And when you stop wanting to do it, it's just that being done for the sake of somebody else. And you even stop wanting to do it for the sake of the other person. You're just doing it because they would be mad if you didn't do it.
There's essentially 20 billion emails.
Then you should stop. You know, you don't play football. You don't go out and play football on the football field if you hate football. You know, it's the same for art.
Once you're out of high school, that is.
our time is up.
Is it up?
Yeah, it's 5 right now.
Anyway, yeah.
But hey,
Well, we're at tables, though, and if you want to continue these conversations or have new ones, we'll be there for a
I'll
while.
be ready to
come to my, if you see me at my table, I'm doing 3 sketches.
Ladies and gentlemen.